Greetings, everybody. Here we are. This is Doug Brown with Method Airwaves, my podcast, episode 3, bullying. That will be the topic today. Now, normally, I talk about pretty uplifting things, like my last episode was Star Wars and everything to do with that. The episode before was titled Solo, which was my life story and all that and how I became who I am today. But today, bullying, where to begin? There is so much to this topic. Without a doubt, there is an epidemic going on through our nation. These kids today are dealing with so many different things. It's really unbelievable. And I grew up in the 1980s, so I am a child of that decade. I graduated high school in 1992, and things were so different back then. We had bullying. Bullying goes way back. Watch Leave It to Beaver, the old TV show. Eddie Haskell, he was the bully. But everything back then wasn't so vindictive and evil. It existed, but not on the level that it does today. There's so much more on these kids' plates. More they have to deal with. More issues. Society. Devices. Social media. Peer pressure. Everything has just exploded. In my day, bullying, for the most part, really took place in the schools. And if somebody was being bullied, that problem would stay there. It would be contained, for the most part, in school. They could go home and escape it. Today, it's completely different. That individual that's being bullied, they go home and it follows them with social media, cell phones. What can we do about this? There are a lot of things we can do about this. Number one is being proactive on the topic, not brushing it under the carpet, which unfortunately a lot of schools are guilty of this. Now, wow, I'm pretty passionate about this topic because I've received so many emails, and I know a lot of parents that have children that are being bullied. And I could sit here and spend 4 hours talking about each individual story. We'll talk about a few today, but there's energy here. Parents have to get involved. There has to be communication between the school, the students, and the parents. These schools need to implement programs as well. I've dealt with this personally. I do have a program called Dream Big, and I speak nationally all over the nation about all types of topics. But you better believe, really, especially when I talk to the schools, that I do a large portion about bullying. So I know firsthand the results of going into a school and speaking to these kids again and connecting to be on their level. I'm not so far removed from that teenager. Heck, I wrote an advice book for teens a couple years ago. I was hypersensitive and very aware of my teen years because I went through a lot, which all teenagers do. And so I constantly tap into that time period when I speak to these kids. I don't go in there like a police officer or a person of authority and talk to them or talk down to them. I assure them that everything's going to be okay and how to be proactive when the bullying does occur and what to do. I'm not going to pretend to have all the answers because who really does? A lot of people get very heated about this. Well, you should do this, you should do that. That's just it. We all have to get together and communicate. And that's the struggle, particularly with the schools. A lot of these schools have this closed door mentality. Oh, we've got it covered. You know, we have counselors. Or they implement maybe a national anti-bullying program, which I've been witness to more than one of these. And wow, some of them are pretty weak. Not to toot my own horn on my program, but I know what to do and what not to do when it comes to speaking to kids, teenagers in particular, especially. Not that long ago, not to ruffle any feathers, but this was a few years back, the community had hired this lady that was on Dr. Phil. And that was her big credit, really. And she came to the community to talk about bullying. And of course I went because I checked these things out, brought my notepad, take notes. I like to be educated and involved. And not to discredit her whole entire program. However, in watching this, I thought, if I was a 13, 14-year-old watching this lady, would I connect with her and what she was saying? No, I wouldn't have, for a number of reasons. I'm pretty against doing a PowerPoint type presentation to kids and teenagers. The second you do that, and the way it was handled, it becomes like class. It's like you're in science class or biology or English class. All of a sudden the teacher's up there, this authoritarian figure, saying, don't do this, pointing their finger. Statistics are. When you talk about statistics to kids and teenagers, for the most part, you're wasting your time. I remember being that age, and I'm not going to walk away with a pie chart of statistics and that really have a big effect on me. Kids, teenagers, and adults, I mean, we all relate to experiences and feelings. To have an emotional effect on somebody is much bigger than any statistic or program that's just thin. And that one that I had witnessed really was. It was maybe 30 minutes long, PowerPoint presentation. Everything sounded scripted and memorized, and not really from the heart. Now, when I speak to people, my favorite part is at the very end where they say, hey, you guys have any questions? Hands go up. Well, at that presentation, a bunch of hands went up. People are curious, have questions. And I believe they only answered maybe 3 or 4 questions tops and closed the door. And it was the end of that presentation. Now, I'm tapped into this stuff. I know how much this individual was paid to do this presentation. And personally, I find it disturbing that that number of that much money was handed to this person to do this. Because boy, that's not what it's about. Look, I'm a professional skateboarder, a motivational speaker, I'm a published author. I understand the value of getting paid, that's okay, but there is a line. And when I speak to people, it's a selfless thing. It's not about me. I don't go into a school to promote myself, my books, my skateboarding. Yeah, it's a card. It's my microphone. It's how I got the opportunity to speak to these people. But it's not about me at all. It's about them, the audience, what they're going through. That's why I am there. So it's not hard to pick up on somebody that you see the dollar signs and like, it's a little synthetic. It's a little thin on the, why is this person doing this? So the schools need quality programs. They need people from the community to come in and speak. Not just policemen and things like that. That's great. I'm all for that. I'm an advocate of that. But again, to a teenager, they're not going to listen to that authoritarian figure as much as somebody that comes in that's kind of down with the kids and not trying to be something they're not. I mean, I've learned this through skateboard culture and a lot of other facets of my life, that kids aren't stupid. Teenagers can see through things. I remember being that age. You know, what do you consider cool or what's not cool? And yeah, they pick up on things. And it's kind of how I go through life. It's like people that treat children like they're not intelligent. And I remember this when my niece was born. I found myself not talking to her in baby talk all the time. I talk to her like a human being. And I've always been that way with kids. That you speak to them normally. It's okay to do the whole goo goo gaga thing. You know, with babies, I get that. But children, I mean, I speak to them with some intellect. Not using big words, but just talking casual and normal. And that's important too, going into a school and just being of the people and with the kids. So that was a lot there. Going into schools, schools need programs to be proactive. Now parents, right as I'm speaking, there's something going on in the community where a lot of these parents are in an uproar because the middle school won't really do anything. I get a lot of emails nationally about this. My kid is being bullied. I contacted the school. The school won't do anything. What do they do? So it's in the air as I speak. I think what's important is that parents talk to these teachers. They get involved in not just rallies, there's a place for that, but really trying to communicate with them. And of course, I've had this happen where the doors slam. So what do you do after that? You can always go higher. You can go to the superintendent of a school. You can get your peers, other parents to get involved and really make a battalion of sorts to reach the school. I've had this happen where my agent and I have contacted a school through emails, through phone calls, and they don't get back. I'm talking like through months and months of trying. There comes a point where you just want to knock on the door and say, hey, look, I am reaching out to you folks to help your kids and what they're going through. And the parents, they have to do the same thing. It's a community. It's a group of people. Everybody has to get together to try to make a difference. Now, this is great, even in this podcast. Talk, 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 talk. You can only talk so much. You got to make that effort. And sometimes it seems like it's an impossible hill. Life has its challenges, doesn't it? But you have to be proactive. You have to leave your home. You have to write a letter. You have to do whatever you can to make it happen. And to reach these kids and to talk to them and to make a difference. I say that a lot, but it never gets old because that's what it's all about. A lot of kids today, teenagers especially, with the whole bullying thing, they lack empathy. That's a word I teach all the time when I go into schools. no matter how old they are, I say, repeat after me, empathy. And they all go, empathy. I make sure they leave understanding that word. Of course, what is empathy? An important word. Empathy involves compassion and caring and heart. To be able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. There's an Elvis song, Walk a Mile in My Shoes, which is kind of fitting. Because everybody has different experiences and baggage and things that they carry inside of them. So if a bullier is attacking or hurting somebody or trying to bring them down, that person doesn't have much empathy. They're not thinking, well, how would I like it if I was in that position? If somebody was doing that to me? Or they can't draw from their own experiences where maybe they've been hurt or harassed or bullied. So empathy is so important. And that's something worth teaching and instilling in young people to be able to carry that with them. So they might think twice about attacking somebody or bullying them. And then there's the whole peer pressure thing, which takes empathy. It challenges it. Because if you have a group of people, attacking somebody, bullying an individual, then the peer pressure comes in. And then they become part of the problem. Instead of that person that's the leader or whatever should be saying, hey, look, let's not hurt this person. Let's handle this differently. And that's a huge challenge for kids today. Kids are quick to think. And the devices, I'll probably go back and forth on this a lot and bring this up again and again. We have Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram. There's a story that I carry with me that happened a while back where this girl was being bullied at school. And she went to prom. And at prom, these kids that didn't like her were taking pictures of her. Then they go home and they post those pictures all over the internet, writing captions in the photo, making fun of them. I wouldn't want to have that happen now. I mean, in my job of doing this almost 18 years, I know what it's like to have haters and to have people not like you or to be misunderstood. I've really dealt with that a lot, actually, especially when I first turned pro. Discovering that, well, wait a second, you're under the spotlight. You have your fans, which is great, but boy, people start sharpening their knives when you get attention or they just don't like you and they want to reach out. And with all these devices and the internet. So I can't imagine going through that at a young age. Having somebody, online doing that is twice as heavy as it would be if they were older. And my heart goes out to people that go through that because it's not easy to deal with all the time. As a young person, you're not really equipped or mature enough to deal with it. But us adults, people that are proactive, like the school should be, and parents, of course, speakers or whatever, can talk to a group of people or an individual, much like a counselor would, and to tell them, hey, it's going to be okay. And don't sweat the little things. Kids going through a tough time, or teenagers, anybody going through school, it always feels like every year, it's like being in jail. 1 year equals 5 years. And every single year, you go through different changes. It never stops, especially in high school. And back to the suicide topic, which is a scary one, but boy, is it a reality, and it does happen. When I went to school, I remember in high school, there was 2 people that committed suicide. And in both cases, they were people that you never would have thought would do this. They just didn't fit the bill. It was a surprise with both people. And that really makes you think. You never know what somebody's going through. You can't judge a person by their exterior or whatever. They could be happy as can be, but still struggling with something. And you look at the suicide rates and among these teenagers, and it's alarming. So if you're a student listening to this or a teenager or whatever, it's important you don't keep everything inside, that you reach out and talk to a trusted adult, a parent, a teacher, anybody. Let somebody know what you're going through. There's so many resources now. That's the good news. I talked about how, back in the past it wasn't as bad. There's a lot of resources now for people, especially with suicide prevention. There's numbers you can call. And reach out. Don't keep it inside of you, because that's the worst thing you can do. It will build like a cancer. And no matter what age I speak to, I preach hope and optimism. Very important elements in life. It's not always easy, but to tell yourself that, hey, it could always be worse, things will get better, that's optimism, hope, to believe that the future is going to be okay, the past is behind us, negative things can go away, to be creative, to find what I call your anti-drugs, which is something positive. Could be music, could be dancing, could be playing the guitar, could be skateboarding, exercise. The list goes on what you can do to get out of a funk. And it doesn't always seem easy, but it is very possible. Time heals all wounds. That sounds preachy and cheesy, but it is true. Time can be your friend and your enemy, but definitely your friend when you're going through a tough time. That, hey, think ahead. Time will pass, and you can look back and go, wow, I'm stronger since I went through this experience. Adversity makes strong people. I heard that from a basketball coach one time, years ago, and I took it. And I use that a lot. Adversity makes strong people, meaning the things we go through, all those tough times, whatever you're dealing with, you go through that and then you look back and like, wow, I'm a richer, stronger person because of that. I have some wisdom. It makes you not sweat the little things. Think, wow, it could be worse. I've been through something worse than this. It's like a badge of honor that you survived. Talk to people that have been through traumatic injuries or dramas, divorces, whatever it can be. You look back and go, wow, you know what? I'm a survivor. And that's a big component in life. So you don't want to contemplate suicide ever. You want to survive. Life is awesome. And it's precious. And it's worth living. I can testify to that for a number of reasons. When I was 16 years old, one of the toughest times of my life, I lost my mom to cancer. She passed away. And during that time period, I have a lot of regrets because we fought all the time and we hurt the ones we're closest to. And her and I were so alike. And I was a confused teenager. I didn't know how to deal with my problems. I was kind of self-absorbed like every teenager is. I was into my skateboarding or my girlfriend at the time, and if I could go in a time machine, I would hug her, tell her I love her, and thank her for everything she's ever done for me. She's one of the biggest parts of my life. I do a lot of what I do because of her. I honor her memory after her passing. I had a choice to go down a negative path or a positive path, and I chose the positive path. And she had a lot to do with that. I mean, there's a wake-up call. You lose your parent and you think, wow, life is short. Things can change overnight. You never know. You have to live every day to the fullest. And I really started doing that after that experience. I got my grades up. I started thinking about my future. I saved my money. I took my talents and skills that I had and I put them into the world, and I made some good choices, and I'm glad, because if I went down a negative path, I wouldn't be doing this podcast right now, speaking to you folks. The skateboard thing never would have happened. My dreams never would have come into fruition. So, something to think about. Life and death and choices. Life is about choices. I can't say it enough. A story that comes to mind from when I was in high school that I'll never forget. It seems like it happened yesterday. It reminds me how cruel people can be to other people. This one individual that I went to school with, this kid that I was a classmate with, that people made fun of a lot. He was a target, unfortunately. He was really quiet. He was developmentally delayed. He was slow. He was in special classes. But people made fun of him a lot, which I always thought was horrible. He was really quiet, and he seemed like a nice guy. I never jumped in on the bullying. This one story that I remember, it was after school let out. This one guy that I knew pretty well, he bullied this other kid. And I was talking to this guy by my locker, and the one kid everybody bullied was walking by. That's it, just walking by. And the guy I knew was like, "Hey, man." And the other kid just stood there and looked at him like, "What?" And this kid punched him in the face for no reason at all. Boom. Wow, how cruel and ugly was that weak move to sucker punch somebody like that. And it made me instantly not like this guy that I considered my friend. After that experience, I saw the kid that was being bullied a lot, and I was always nice to him, I didn't know him. We weren't friends, but I always said hi to him. I never gave negative vibes to him. I knew what he was dealing with. Now, if I went in a time machine, I would have talked to him and said, "Look, forget this guy, man. He's not worth it. What he did to you was completely inappropriate and wrong." Now, the guy that was bullying this kid, as an adult, has turned into somebody somewhat negative. Very negative. So, somebody that's being a bullier, they have scars that you don't see. Hurt people hurt people. You hear that expression a lot. And you got to stop and think about that for a minute. Like, why was he doing that? A person that's being a bullier is trying to hurt somebody to bring them down to their level. There's scars you don't see. It's how they cope. It's wrong. That never should have occurred. But I think this person has gone through their life like that. Everything's negative. And yeah, they've not really been a friend of mine. They've had things to say about me too. So it's like, really? I remember this one time when you sucker punched an innocent kid in school that didn't deserve that. Boy, it just stings to think about that memory. So I remember that. Now, have I been a bully before? We are all guilty to some degree of hurting another person in our life without even realizing it. And during those teen years, you're oblivious to it. We shouldn't be, but there's times that it does happen. And for me, it did happen my freshman year. There was a girl that people were kind of making fun of, and I don't know. I made the mistake of saying that she looked like a movie character, that she looked like E.T. That's what I said. Just that one sentence. Years have gone by. I never forgot that. And I felt guilty about it. So I'd say maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I ran into this person in my hometown. I saw her. And I took the initiative to go up to her and sincerely apologize. It was at a gas station. She was walking by and I had to go up to her. She didn't have any memory of it all, fortunately. But I just said, look, I'm sorry that I said something to you all those years ago. Even though it was one sentence, I felt terrible about it. And she had thanked me for saying that. And she was super cool and, talked about her life, talked about my life. Wow, where's the time gone? And we parted ways. But I took the initiative to say I'm sorry. In a lot of cases of bullying, another reason people do it is they fear somebody that's different, something that makes them feel uncomfortable. And in our world, different is good. I think that needs to be taught, that it's wonderful that we're all different and colorful and unique. I always use the movie Star Wars as an example. Big surprise, right? Star Wars. I always say the stormtroopers, they're robots. They all look and walk the same, not much going on. How boring would life be if we were all stormtroopers? If we all talked the same, walked the same, looked the same, act the same, if we were just robots? Life wouldn't be very colorful. And life is beautiful and colorful. And our differences should be celebrated. I was so lucky that in grade school, I attended an awesome school. It was called Layton Elementary. How blessed was I to go there for a number of reasons. Mainly because everybody was so diverse. There were different cultures, different ethnicities. Being around that and growing up around that was awesome. Because I never saw color. I didn't see different ethnicities, really. I mean, these were my friends. I had so many different types of friends growing up. I would stay the night at their house and this and that. And to be around that was just really great. I mean, I cannot believe in the world how much ignorance there still is on if somebody's different, if someone believes something that you don't believe in, or if someone dates somebody that you don't agree with. I just don't understand it. A lot of that, I believe, not just society, but parents. It's important that parents put on their kids to have them be open-minded, to educate them that we are all different. And it's okay to be different. It should be celebrated. Life isn't about being all the same. I see this a lot in skateboarding. I'm immersed in skateboard culture and I travel a great deal, and I've been to so many different skate parks around the world. And I see the difference. It's amazing from one place to the other, especially outside of the country, how the vibes are different and people treat each other. And I've seen bullying happen at skate parks firsthand. Whether it's another skateboarder making fun of another skateboarder, or a biker making fun of a kid on a scooter, or whatever it is. When I see this happen, I normally, being the adult, I jump in the middle of that transaction and say, whoa guys, we're all here for the same reasons. Just because you don't like the way he's skating or doing whatever doesn't mean you have to bring him down and make him feel like crap. Talk about lacking empathy. The person didn't show up at the skate park to not feel good, or they went to have fun, to make friends, to enjoy the day. And it's sad that this happens a lot in skateboarding, because it's the same thing. Back to the Star Wars reference, in skateboarding or biking or whatever you're doing, how boring would it be if we all did the same thing and we were all clones of each other and looked the same and acted the same? No, skateboarding to me is art. There should be no rules. If you want to do a handstand and breakdance on your skateboard or whatever you do, more power to you, because you're expressing yourself. And that's what it's all about to me. So when someone says, oh, I don't like if you do this or that, it's not good. I had a kid come up to me one time and he said, these guys are making fun of me. They don't like the tricks I'm doing. So should I stop skating? I mean, he was serious. He was contemplating quitting skating solely on the fact that a group of people were giving him a hard time about his style of tricks and what he chose to do on the skateboard. And I said, look, man, I've had that happen to me. Do not change. Are you having fun? Do you believe in what you're doing? Don't stop just because somebody else tells you to. And that's symbolic of life. Be yourself. I can't say that sentence enough. Life is colorful. It's art. And skateboarding is the same way. Don't change just because somebody else has this idea of what they want you to be. I'm not a huge fan of being a follower or a clone of anything. I love the idea of being original and different. And in my skateboarding, I've got some backlash because of that. For sure. I mean, I make up a lot of my own skate tricks, and I'm an advocate of being original. But to some people, it makes them feel uncomfortable. They have this idea like, oh, you should be doing this, and then I'll consider you cool. No way. That's not what it's about at all. I didn't jump on a skateboard from day one to just fit in and to be a robot. No, I wanted to be an individual. I loved traditional sports, basketball, baseball. I did all those. There was a place for that in my life, but skateboarding was a team of one. There's no rules, no regulations. It was fun, and that's why I got into it. And I'm still into that philosophy to this day. So if somebody says they don't like my skating or whatever, hey, whatever, to each of their own. But to a young person, a kid, a teenager, it can resonate on a different level. They can get depressed and down, and they don't have the equipment that an adult does as far as mentally to be able to deal with something like that. So I always tell people, I preach all the time, everywhere I go, be yourself and whatnot. I mean, honestly, the start of my career, I never set out to do the whole professional skateboarder thing. And I thought it would last a year or two when I got discovered as a fluke at the Gravity Games in 2002. Making a long story short, my episode 1 podcast is about an hour of me talking about that. But that day I was discovered by a company and got picked up. I mean, I never thought I would be sponsored or a professional skateboarder. But through my skateboard life, I'd always did my own thing. I always tried to be creative, and that was my angle. I enjoyed that. And the day I got discovered, had I blended in and looked just like everybody else and skated just like everybody else, I wouldn't have stuck out. And that's how I got discovered, from being different. That's been my whole thing. I just look back at that time and think, wow, I'm glad I stuck out. It paid off. Being yourself has its rewards, especially if you're getting into music or arts or skateboarding or whatever in life. Shine. Be yourself. Look inward. Don't be afraid to embrace who you are. That's so symbolic of life. As you get older, you go through so many changes, and I like to use this as an example, that life is a puzzle. Boy, it is. It's a huge, heavy puzzle with big pieces. And through life, you have different experiences, which are pieces, and you put that all together. And the thing is, the puzzle's never done. You're always learning. We're always evolving. Those pieces build, and the puzzle gets better. Who you become gets more in focus, and the puzzle's better, but it's never finished. So in life, self-discovery is such a good thing. Embrace who you are, no matter what it is. Ask yourself questions. What do I like? What am I into? Who do I want to be? What do I want to do for the world? Do I want to be somebody productive, somebody that has purpose? Do I want to give back to the world? I always tell people, everybody has a dream. Every single one of us has a dream. It's important, no matter who you are, what age you are, whatever. Don't let anybody take away that dream from you. There'll be times in life where you have speed bumps and roadblocks, and people will try to bring you down. Stand strong on who you are and who you want to become. Hopefully, some advice here that in that dream that you're pursuing, hopefully you're not chasing money, wealth, fame. Hopefully, no matter what your goal or dream is, that it's something productive or something that makes a difference in the world, no matter what it is. I mean, I use my dad as an example all the time because he was a baby doctor. But he was so much more than that. He would connect with people. He had relationships with people. They would come in for their appointment and he would ask how they were doing, how the kid's doing, is Steve in college yet? And he made that connection to make his job more than his actual job, if that makes sense. I've discovered this through my skateboarding career. For sure. I mean, when I first started, it was like I'm skating, this and that, but that wasn't enough. For me, I noticed that I had some fans. I became a role model and a mentor to a lot of kids, a lot of people, and I embraced that. And so I started writing books. I started doing outreach. I started a nonprofit organization. I put myself out there to make a difference, to do something bigger than what I set out to do in a positive way. And that's something you want to do with your goals and your dreams, is to make a difference. We need each other. People are the heaviest components of our lives. We can't go through all this alone. We covered a lot of ground today. Like I said, there's so many stories out there of people being bullied. Each story is unique and different on its own, but yet it's not. They all have the same element of somebody taking advantage of somebody else, trying to bring them down and to make their life havoc and not happy, causing serious problems within a person. And will it stop completely through life? No. But can it be dealt with? Can we reduce the suicide rate? Can we change this bullying epidemic? Can we try to make a difference in how people treat each other in the world? Yes, 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 we can. So my advice for the bullier, or if you know somebody that's doing bullying, you can be proactive and change the situation. You can jump in and say, hey, look, what you're doing is incorrect. It's wrong. A bullier has scars that you can't see. Like I said earlier, hurt people. And they're going after somebody because they're down, because they don't like themselves. There's something they're struggling with that they're uncomfortable with. So they're trying to take you and bring you down on their level. And you don't want to empower them to do that. So stand strong. I know it's easier said than done, and it does take time and help and efforts, but it can be diminished for sure. And to the person that's being bullied, what you're going through, you're not alone at all. This is happening everywhere, and things are going to get better. You don't have to change. Be yourself. Have self-love. You're not alone. Time will pass. The people that are giving you trouble and bothering you, they're going to move on to something else. If they don't stop bullying, they'll find somewhere else to do it. They have that negative energy. You don't have that negative energy. Take your positive energy. Don't put it out in a negative way. That's something else to think about when you're mad, angry. Don't lash out. Don't get in fights. Don't surround yourself with negative people. Have that hope and optimism that I talked about earlier. Make good choices. It's easy to go the bad route, drugs, alcohol, whatever. Don't mess with any of that stuff. That's going to take away your dreams in 2 seconds. It'll take away your family, your friends. Stay away from all that stuff. Find your anti-drugs, which to me are like skateboarding, or maybe you're into music or karate or whatever it is. Reading. Find that positive outlet when you get down and depressed. It's a good coping mechanism, a positive one. So stay positive. Things are going to be okay. They really are. Talk to somebody. It's important to reach out, like I said. And to parents. Parents are very, very important in this whole bullying arena, because they have the power to reach that kid by talking to them. You got to talk to your kids, and you have to talk to them honestly and openly. Not only do you have to talk, but you have to do this thing too, which is probably more important than anything, is listening. Listen to your kids, word from word. Don't interrupt them. Let them speak their mind. Value their opinions, even if you don't agree with it. And try to communicate. I know when I was an adolescent that I struggled a great deal with this, talking to my parents and just our communication. It was good, but it could have been better. Now that I'm older, wiser, have some wisdom, I would say things to my adolescent that I wish my parents would have said. So always go in that time machine. Never forget that you were that age at one time too, and the struggles that you had. Something to keep in mind. And lastly is the schools. Advice for the schools and teachers and principals. Get involved. Don't close the door of communication with people that are trying to reach out to you. It's easy for these school systems to just say, we've got it covered, go away, this is our deal, we're fine. You don't always have all the answers. To a teacher that's a biology teacher, that's your skill, you know that. But are there other skills that maybe that you're lacking? And do you have the ability to reach out and to help somebody with this problem? And the schools need to have an open mind and to not ignore the parents or programs that knock on your door and say, hey, we want to make a difference. I'd like to speak to your kids. And that's something I do. I've approached lots of schools and I've spoke to hundreds and hundreds of schools across the nation, and it's been rewarding. But there are schools that the doors are closed. They have no interest. They're just not having it. And that's unfortunate. So to the schools, when people reach out, it's okay to get involved. Parents, have meetings. Be creative. I've always said that the biggest lessons in school happen in the hallways or on the playground or at the lunch table. Classrooms are important. All those topics need learned, but it's that unseen stuff. The social interactions, the diversity, the challenges, the things that are learned outside of the classroom. And schools have a responsibility to embrace that stuff, the extracurricular things that have nothing to do with the classroom, but what the kids are dealing with. Not the school topics, but the social topics. And to get involved. So with those elements, we have the bullier, we have the person that's being bullied, we have the parents, and we have the schools. So there's our group. Put all those together, and hopefully through communication, constant communication, and being proactive, putting a dream into action, making a difference. That's how you do it. That's how we try. That's all we can do is try. I don't have the answers. If somebody says they're an anti-bullying expert, are they? Nobody's an expert. We're all kind of grabbing at straws, but some things work and some things don't work. And one thing that definitely does work is communicating and taking charge and making a difference. So good luck to everybody out there. I'm hoping the future of this gets better. I'm going to say that it will through communication and talking to each other and reaching out and having empathy and sympathy for others and making a difference. So if you are being bullied, I should add that it's important to reach out, talk to a trusted adult, a teacher. Reach out. If you're down, depressed, you're suicidal, there's so many resources. I should mention the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-8255 is a number you can call. A website worth checking out, stopbullying.gov. It's G-O-V, www.stopbullying.gov. And hopefully your schools have resources. Talk to your counselors. You can reach out to these teachers. They're not the enemy. The school system should be the friends. Let them know what's going on always. The worst thing you can do is not tell people and to just, especially if you're a young person, a kid, a teenager, talk to your parents. Let them know first what's going on, and they can help you in your outreach. I should mention real quick, I did write a book. I've written a bunch of books, but this book is my favorite book. I really put my heart into this. It's called Speedy Entry: Advice for the Rebel with a Cause Teenager. I dive deep into my teen years and everything that I went through, and it can be purchased at www.dougbrownbooks.com. If you get it through there, I send them out personally and sign them, so it will ship fast to your doorstep. So, with all this, it's a heavy topic. Hope you've enjoyed. I hope it's reached you and got you thinking and helped you. It's all we can do. Let's try to help each other and work together to help the future, the kids. They're it. So everything they're learning now, they're going to bring forward to their children and so forth. That's life, isn't it, folks? Always moving on. We're all getting older, and it's hard to believe. And time does fly. The older you get, the faster it goes. So I live each day to the fullest, as if each day could be the last. Stop and smell the roses. I wish you all well. Until next time on Method Airwaves, be patient. We've got some fun guests coming up. And for more information on my comings and goings, you can visit my official site, www.dougbrown.org. And on that note, Method Airwaves is signing off. Till next time, everybody. We'll see you.